Hello and welcome back. This is segment 2 of Team Tachiai's Aki podcast. We're looking at the Banzuke in segment 2. It was, as mentioned in segment 1, it was a tough one to predict because of the absolute blowout that happened in the Joijin. So many Rikishi finished with not just Makikoshi but deep Makikoshi, and so it was kind of a pull a name out of a hat and hope for the best. Just initially, give me Andy, give me some thoughts on the Banzuke.
This Banzuke was very, very challenging. Well, even more challenging than usual for me because there was just this huge gap, like you said, in the joy that was very difficult to predict how to fill. And really, there were only kind of 2 stars from the lower ranks of the division with Hoshoryu and Kotonowaka. So it was a pretty big challenge to kind of predict things. The only ones that we really knew were where Asanoyama was going to fall, and Takakesho is unfortunately Karaban, and I mean Shodai is probably not. I don't know, he's not far from Karaban, so I don't know. We know that there's going to be more blood this month.
All right, Josh. Anything that leapt out when you first saw the Banzuke a week ago?
Nah. As we talked about in the first segment, I think, unfortunately, the sort of quality of the division right now is just kind of much of a muchness. Yep. So I'm not, I guess, the Banzuke kind of person. So when you look at this, the only thing that's kind of crazy is you're like, what's Endo doing all the way down there at Maegashira 11 or whatever? And it's like, oh, yeah, he won Kyujo. So
yep.
He's probably the only person that I look at and go, well, he's better than that rank, but apart from that, everyone seems to just kind of be where they deserve to be.
Nah, come on. There's a bunch of high risk nonsense going on, and I'll pick up the first one. So Ura, who was also came back from some pretty serious injuries twice now. He's sort of had to go get his lower body repaired. He turned in a pretty decent 10-5, going from Maegashira 13 to Maegashira 6 now, and he's probably going to face some of the heavies. I don't know. That seems like a bit of a risk to a guy who's kind of only tentatively able to remain upright. Josh, any thoughts about that one?
I think he'll be fine at maybe Maegashira 6 or whatever. I think he'll actually miss a lot of. He'll probably miss certainly the Yokozuna. I don't think he'll run the Ozeki unless there's a real problem and people pull out elsewhere. And we've kind of said it at every step of the way. Ooh, is he gonna be able to make the step up to Juryo? Is he gonna be able to adjust to, fighting for promotion back to Makuuchi? Is he gonna be able to stay in Makuuchi? And he's done it. And I think we have to give him a lot of credit for that.
Yep.
And I think it's exciting for him to be fighting matches in the second half of the top division. And I think the real challenges for him are going to be against the guys who are fighting for promotion to Sanyaku, the Hoshoryus, the Kotonawakas, the Wakataka Kages, these types of people. So that's what I'm looking out for him. And hopefully he can just continue to make the next step and maybe get himself in position to make a new career high in the next tournament in November.
So the fans still love this guy, Andy.
Yeah, and there are a lot of really dynamic wrestlers right there with him on the Banzuke.
Well, he's opposite Onosho, who, depending upon which one shows up, can be a big deal.
Well, yeah, if Onosho this low, he can show up, but when he's up in the joy, he gets kind of slapped sometimes.
Because he's a weeble.
Well, but Tobizaru is down there, and that is one bout that I'm looking forward to seeing.
No, that's going to be so one-sided. It's not even funny.
But I'm also looking forward to Ura versus Shimanomi. That's going to be a barnstormer.
Well, they're in the same stable, so you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. All right, let's roll on to one of my favorite little stories that came out of Nagoya, which was the fierce Ichinojo showed up in Nagoya, went 10-5 at Maegashira 2, and now he's up in at Komosubi. this is like the first time, I think at least in a couple years, he's been up in the Sanyaku. And he took the slot that Takayasu had, oddly enough, that it seems that his 2-day Kyujo is what cost him his Sanyaku, or his Sekiwaki slot. Josh, some thoughts about Ichinojo? Will we get the ice cream eater or the pony tosser?
I can't remember which one's the good one. I think they're both the good one, right?
Well, the pony tosser is the one that wins matches.
I think that Sanyaku is better for Ichinojo's inclusion. Obviously, he has probably one of the higher talent levels of anyone in the top division right now when he's on.
Yeah.
If he approaches it like he approached his match against Hakuho, who basically defeated him on one leg last tournament, then he's not going to be able to retain his rank. But he is someone who typically gets up for the bigger matches.
Yep.
He's just going to have to do it more frequently. And, there is going to be a bit of a battle for Sanyaku positions in the next tournament. So it's just about whether he can turn it on mentally.
Yeah, and that's a big question, because that seems to be his weak spot, is whether or not he can keep himself focused. Andy, thoughts about the castle?
Well, I liked how he performed in that in the joint practice, but unfortunately out of that, he got the COVID test. And so I'm not sure how hard, hopefully that did not hit him hard at all. And so he was able to just kind of brush it off. And fortunately, it was far enough in advance of the tournament that he'll...
No, we're talking about Ichinojo. Ichinojo.
Yeah, he got COVID.
Did he? Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. It was like right after.
That's right.
That's like right after that joint practice, and so it was kind of a big worry that he might not be able to participate. But I mean, that's the thing. I haven't heard any news about his how it hit him. But I hope that he was one of those rare cases where it's like Hakuho, not really serious, and he's able to get going. But he is one of those that I'm kind of eyeballing for Kyujo to start, at least for the first week or so. And I'm a bit concerned about where he could go. But with such weakness up in the Sanyaku, he could definitely show up and tear him up.
So I'm going to make an inline correction. When I was talking about Ichinojo hitting the Sekiwaki slot, that's actually Meisei who hit the Sekiwaki slot. He's up at Komosubi. Ichinojo is. So apologies, Sumo fans. I'm sure all of you caught that already. Don't need to post it in the comments because we all know that Bruce makes mistakes. I don't know. Any comments about Meisei, Andy?
Yeah, he's at his highest rank ever. His first time at Sekiwaki.
I know you love this guy.
He charged up the Banzuke pretty quickly. I think that he's definitely got a bright future. And with all of the change around, he might be able to kind of push it to the next level. I don't know if he's at that quality at this point. But it will be interesting. This will be a great tournament to test him and see if he can at least just maintain that Sekiwake position for a couple of tournaments.
Josh, you want to make any comments on Meisei or pass?
I absolutely love Meisei, so I'll talk about Meisei real quick. He's always had tenacity. If you look at the last tournament, he did something that not a lot of people did, which is that he really brought a match to Hakuho. He doesn't seem to have any fear. I don't know that he'll necessarily stick at this rank at Sekiwake, but he does seem like someone who will be Komusubi a lot. You wouldn't normally say that he would have the ability to go on and be an Ozeki, but there's not a lot of quality in the top division right now, so you just never know.
Yep.
I think he'd be lucky to scratch out a Kachikoshi this time.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. But, I want to talk about the guy who's at the top of the rank and file as well, and that's Hoshoryu, who also was able to turn in 10-5 at Nagoya. He seems to finally be becoming more comfortable at his size, more comfortable fighting the top people. He doesn't look like he's completely out of sorts. I mean, I look at the doubleheader match he had with Ichinojo where they called a do-over, and he basically fought a pretty genki Ichinojo twice and won the second one. Josh, is it about time for Hoshoryu to solidify himself up in the Joijin?
I think he will. I mean, my God, the cult of Hoshoryu just keeps getting fueled. If you read online comments, and blah blah blah, etc. and so on. But his sumo is really improving. I still say there's not a lot in it that wows me compared to someone like Kiribayama. I think sumo wise, they're pretty similar. It's just the difference is a difference in attitude, and what changes the difference between them and what might make him more likely to stick is that Hoshoryu does have a lot of that fire. Now, that does also manifest itself in ways that I don't like to see, which is when he starts to act like a bit of a brat when things don't go his way. There's a match in the last tournament where he starts staring down the Shimpan because he thought that he deserved the Mono-E. And if that had been someone of a higher rank, let's say maybe someone who, is up for criticism every 2 months by the Yokozuna Deliberation Committee, I think we would have heard folks discussing it. But since he was like a Maegashira 5 or whatever, obviously it got glossed over, and people on the internet who just love him don't care. So look, that said, he's Maegashira 1 East. He should get both Yokozuna very early in the first couple days probably. So that should be some good week 1 viewing, and I think we should all look forward to that regardless of how the tournament goes for him.
Okay, so just to keep things on pace, Andy, let's talk about Kotonowaka. Kotonowaka is he did 12-3, fantastic performance. He had the Kanto show, and he's now at Maegashira 3. Is he basically the equivalent of Koto Echo this time out? Is he going to get thumped so hard that he'll be lucky to land with a wet thud?
He's definitely got the size and I think more of the skills than Koto Echo, but he's definitely, like Koto Echo, he is virtually unknown to a lot of these guys up in Sanyaku, and so he'll have the potential for some upsets in there. I would not be surprised if he takes on and beats Shodai, for example, but I do think that he's in a little bit over his head here, and I did like the Hoshoryu Kiribayama comparison there. Yeah. But I do think that Hoshoryu seems to have more tricks, especially with the trips and leg work, than what Kiribayama has. And so that's why Kiribayama gets kind of slapped back down when he he doesn't seem to perform all that well up here. I don't think Kotonowaka will necessarily succeed this first go, but he's young, and I think that he'll definitely be back. He will definitely develop more, but he'll be a little bit over his head this tournament.
So I want to touch on something. We've talked quite a bit about people commenting on the internet, on Twitter and other places. So Mitoryu went 12-3 from Juryo 6, landed at Juryo 1. A lot of people thought he should have gotten the boost up to the top division. I'll weigh in personally and say, suck it up, Buttercup. That's how this goes most of the time. There was such a jumble at the bottom end of Makuuchi that promotion lanes were really blocked out for the most part. Josh, do you want to comment on this at all?
Yeah, it was a little bit shocking to see. That was probably the most shocking thing when I looked at it. Not really in context or any kind of context, because as you say, when you look at the Banzuke, or not the Banzuke, but the results of the last tournament in context of the Banzuke, a lot of 7 and 8s, 8 and 7s, all there at the bottom of Makuuchi and the top of Juryo. And as you say, there just wasn't really anywhere for him to go. I think, the issue with Mitoryu is he's just kind of been there in Juryo for a really long time, and he's never been able to put together a solid, consistent run. He finally puts together a great tournament, and you think it's going to be the thing that vaults him out of the division. It doesn't. So I agree with you. I don't think it's the worst thing for him to have to go through another tournament at this level. But equally, as you say, you can look at past Banzuke and go, wow, he's been a bit hard done by here. So hopefully he can use that as motivation.
Okay, so let's go into the final Banzuke topic, and I know this one is dear to Andy's heart, and that is Hattorizakura has retired. For those of you fans who never did the odd thing of trying to watch, some of the earliest in the day matches, there was this slender, slight fellow named Hattorizakura who you had to wonder what he was doing. His final record for his career in sumo consisted of 3 wins and 238 losses. So he would get up there and basically do the limp noodle thing. But people loved him because he just kept doing it. He just kept doing it. And I know, Andy, I always saw you on Twitter. You were so pumped for Hattorizakura's matches. What are your feelings on the departure of this guy who just would not stop no matter how much he lost?
It's just the end of a very interesting career and story because, when somebody joins the sumo world, there's really like 3 options of being a wrestler, a yobidashi, or a gyoji. For somebody who didn't necessarily have, the
physique.
I didn't think
the drive.
Right. For
the fighting
being
spirit.
A wrestler, I was kind of not surprised. I was kind of surprised that he didn't go the gyoji route or the yobidashi route. But he was always very interesting. But the thing is, he was just terrified.
Yeah.
Like whenever anybody was up there who was bigger than him, I felt for the guy because I feel like I would be the exact same. Like if one of those guys was across the dojo from me, I don't know if I would be able to go headlong into them like Takakesho does into Ichinojo. I don't know if I'd be able to do that. But he would bring it for guys like Hone and for Kato in the last tournament, and you would get like he would show a little bit of effort in those ones, whereas with some of the other bouts, it was like he would just kind of fall over, or there's those amazing videos of where there are bouts where he would kind of just basically take a dive 3 or 4 times in a row, and they would eventually like just pick him up and carry him out. But like when he would actually be pitted against somebody, I guess less intimidating, he would kind of put forward an effort, and you would get a good bout out of him. And so I don't know. It was a very interesting story. I already though have another wrestler to watch down there in Byakuen. Byakuen has fire. He is somebody like they had video of him, Hoshoryu lending his chest to Byakuen down in Jonokuchi. I mean, I think that kid is very, I don't know, he's got a fan.
Josh, any thoughts about?
A story. A sort of quick story. The last time I was in Japan, I was talking to someone in the sumo community, and I said, if I can ever get out to old Kitazakura's place, Shikihirabeya, then I want to see, is it possible that I could go to Keiko and arrange to have a match against former Hattorizakura, Shonanzakura. He was Hattorizakura at the time. And that was definitely on the sumo bucket list. And, who knows if it could have been likely, but perhaps I could have been Tachiai's Raja Pradhan, going out there and putting on the washi. And, I'm sure there are folks who are glad for it. But
how about Josh versus Raja?
I'd do it. I would absolutely do it.
I think I smell a possibility. Okay, everyone get past COVID, because I think we could have a charity match between Raja and Josh, and it would be freaking awesome.
I do. I mean, look, listen, I'll finish on this. He was a real cult figure, and I think that's what's intriguing about it for me. And I think, to Andy's point, I think it would have been really nice with that record that you mentioned, Bruce, for him to retire on a final win and then pass the baton to the next lovable loser. but I think all of his rivals have disappeared. And I don't know, Bruce, maybe this is the transition in sumo that you were talking about for all these years.
A peerless record. And with that, we will conclude our Banzuke segment. I'd like to thank Andy and Josh for joining me on this, and for all of you who've watched this far, thank you. And remember, for sumo, it's Tachiai.